Hey everyone! So I'm here with my reading wrap-up video, and this is for January and for prior months previous to January. The last one of these videos I did was like combined one for July and August, which I had filmed back in September. And honestly, the past few months I haven't been reading a lot. It isn't until recently that I actually have read stuff and finished stuff to actually have a video about. So I decided to kind of just share everything that I have been reading or everything that I've read, and I've also listened to some audiobooks, but everything that I have read or listened to since I had my last update. So this is several months of books, but it's not a ton just because I haven't been reading a ton. So I will start off with the like hardcover or physical books, I guess I should say, and then I'll talk about audiobooks second. So firstly, I read Mindy Kaling's Why Not Me? I don't have the physical book to show you because I have lent it to my mom to read, but I got this in my Pop Sugar must-have back in October, I believe, and it's Mindy Kaling's second book, and I loved her first one, Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me? So I love this one as well. It's like about her life, but it also had some self-help elements, which I feel like a lot of memoirs sort of do that, give a little bit of like advice or like what they've learned sort of thing. So I really enjoyed it. I read it really fast. I definitely recommend if you're sort of in a reading slump and not really into reading, I definitely recommend reading something that's like easy to read, something fun to read, to kind of get you out of that slump. So I read that a few months ago. I think it was around Thanksgiving, Christmas, I think, when I finished that one. So that was quite a few months ago. Next thing I read and actually finished, and this was something I read over like Christmas. This is Hello New York. This is by Julia Rothman. And this is something I picked up when I was in New York last spring. And I mean, it's not like a novel or anything. It's just this little book about New York. It's about different places in New York, and it has like these really cute drawings, and it's just sort of an interesting, you know, sort of tribute to New York, as if you will. So I read it just like in one sitting in like an hour or so, so it wasn't something crazy, but I just wanted to share it. I love little books like this with like illustrations and little stories, and you know, it's about this, the author has like lived in New York her whole life, and it just talks about places that she loves and, you know, just her experiences and just different things about the city. So I just thought it was really, I don't know, just like a really cute little book. So I did read that. And then in January, I read 2 additional books. One I had been reading, I got it back for my birthday in August, so I had been reading it, you know, a little bit at a time, and I finally finished it in January, and that is Meg Cabot's Royal Wedding. And this is a Princess Diaries book, which you can see behind me. I have the Princess Diaries series, which was like the early 2000s. I'm not sure when the first book came out, but I think it was around 2006 or something, or maybe 2008 when the last Princess Diaries book was written. And they're young adult books, but now this is an adult version. It's Princess Mia, you know, in her 20s, and she's getting married, so it kind of talks about, you know, her wedding and that sort of thing, where she is now in her life. And it's not, now it took me forever to read, but it's not like, I mean, it's pretty a fast-paced book, and if you've read Meg Cabot before, all of her books are pretty fast-paced. I don't know what it was about this one. I mean, I like Princess Mia. I kind of wanted it for nostalgia's sake, but I wouldn't say it's something like you need to read. I think if you've liked the Princess Diaries books in the past and you would enjoy kind of catching up with Princess Mia, that you should read it, but it's nothing that's gonna like dramatically like change the series for you or like some big revelations about the series. And some of it, since it's been so long since I read it, you know, I'm like familiar with the characters, but some of them are like I've kind of forgot like the storylines. So it was, I mean, I liked it. It's not my like, oh my gosh, you need to read it sort of book. but you know, it was entertaining. But I think it does say something that took me quite a while to get through when it's not that hard of a book to read. So there's that. And then finally in January, and this is a book that I read entirely in January. I got this one for Christmas. It's A Window Opens by Elisabeth Egan, and I actually read most of this like over the course of a weekend, so I read it pretty fast. And I'll just point out to begin with, I love the cover of this. I just think it's so pretty. It's kind of like the Meg Cabot one. They have this like anonymous sort of girl on the cover, but the inside, it's like this polka dots, which I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but I don't know. I really like the jacket for this book. I think it's really, really cute. But anyway, this book is about a mother of 3. She works part-time. She's like the book, she writes book reviews for a magazine, like a woman's magazine. This book was written by Elisabeth Egan, is the books editor at Glamour magazine. So I don't think it's necessarily autobiographical, but I think it's sort of like the main character, from what I know just of the back jacket biography of the author, sort of seems like she took herself and sort of made some sort of story with herself in a different sort of situation. So I don't think it's autobiographical, but the main character in this book writes book reviews for a woman's magazine. She has 3 children. Her husband's a lawyer, and her husband finds out that he's not going to make partner in his law firm, so he decides to quit his job and he's going to start his own law firm. So this, of course, her husband's not going to be getting a regular salary, and it's going to take him a while to build up his business. So the main character, which her name is Alice, she needs to find a full-time job. So this book kind of talks about family. It talks about working mothers, which I think is I found it really interesting, kind of the dynamic of that. She finds a new job for this company that is going to create these bookstores. It's kind of like a mall, like a company that owns these like malls that sort of come into cities and like kind of displace all like the local businesses with this like mall that has everything. And they're going to have these bookstores that are going to sell, like, you can get like ebooks there, and it's kind of going to put like local bookstores out of business. So it was really interesting that it was a premise of a book about books and like the book industry, and the main character loved books. So I really like that, and it's about her family relationships and just her kind of figuring out what she wants to do with her life, and her kind of balancing, you know, being a mother and also providing for her family, and what does that mean. So I found this really interesting. I really liked it. I read it really quickly, and it's definitely got me excited about reading it again. So definitely I want to read more, and this has really kind of sparked that. So those are the only books that I've actually read over the past few months. I have listened to some audiobooks. Mainly I listen to these as I drive into work, so I quickly want to go over those. I listened to back a few months, Never Broken by Jewel, which I really love Jewel. I've loved her for years. And she's written a book. It's autobiographical. It has a little bit of like advice sort of part to it, but the reason I wanted it as an audiobook is for part of the books there's lyrics, and she actually sings, like acoustically sings some songs. So since I really love Jewel, I wanted to get the audiobook, because obviously if you're reading it, you're not going to be able to hear her actually singing the song. So I really enjoyed it, and I think it's definitely something I would re-listen to. Just because it is autobiographical, and it's not something like, oh, I know what happens. I mean, I can listen to this over and over and really enjoy it. So I love that. Then I listened to Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. This is about a woman. She has a seemingly perfect career. She's engaged to be married. She has a seemingly perfect life, but the book kind of shows the not so perfect parts of her life, and when she was in high school, something awful happened to her, and she's going to be part of this documentary that's going to be talking about her high school experience and what had happened. So you sort of learn about her past through as you read throughout the book. So you don't really know what happened in the beginning, and you sort of have to get to that, like go through the book to figure out what happened. And the book will alternate chapters between the main character's name is Tiffany, so it has her in current day, and then the next chapter will be her in high school. So you sort of learn more and more about this character as you go on with the book. I don't want to give too much away with it because I read it not knowing a lot, and it's one of those books that it's suspenseful, and you sort of want to figure out what happens, and it definitely keeps you entertained. A little bit of like a thriller esque sort of book, or psychological thriller sort of book. So I don't want to give too much away with it, but I definitely really enjoyed it. It's definitely one that keeps you really interested because you want to keep learning more and more about what had happened to Tiffany. And then I listened to The Woman Who Stole My Life by Marian Keyes. Now I have all of Marian Keyes' other books. I've read all of her other books. She's an Irish author, like really popular. She was popular more maybe in the 90s, early 2000s. But this book is about a woman. She lives in Ireland. She has 2 children. She's divorced from her husband. She's written like this self-help book, and she was successful, but now she's back in Ireland. So the book's sort of like she was very successful, but now she's like back home, and what has happened. And she had also previously been in the hospital. She had this like rare neurological like disorder that left her like temporarily like paralyzed. So the book also talks about that, like how she got through that, and then that led her to being this self-help book author, and then how she got currently in her life that she's back home and kind of down on her luck sort of type of book. So it sort of like goes backwards and sort of tells you like everything that's happened in her life to get her to where she currently is. So I definitely like books like that aren't told in sequential order. I think those keep you really interested because you want to keep listening to find out what has happened, because you kind of start at the end and kind of work back to see everything that has happened, all the events that have led up to have this person in their current condition. So I found that was really interesting. Definitely love Marian Keyes. So if you're into Marian Keyes books, I definitely recommend that one. Then I listened to Lone Wolf by Jodi Picoult, and I've listened to a few other audiobooks by Jodi Picoult, and I find they're really interesting because she tends to have multiple characters in her books. Like different chapters are devoted to different characters, so it's not just one character that you're following throughout the whole book. You get different perspectives, which I think is really interesting. And for her audiobooks, there's different narrators. So the chapter's focused on one character, that character, and actors playing that character to narrate that chapter of the book. And then it will switch to the whatever other character. So I find that really interesting for audiobooks. I think it makes it fun to kind of listen to. You get the different narrator perspective, so it keeps it from sounding the same and it makes it a little more exciting. This particular book, Lone Wolf, is about a wolf biologist, Luke, and he's basically devoted his whole life to studying wolves. He has a family. He has a daughter and a son, and he has a wife who he's divorced. But he's dedicated his whole life to wolves. He's lived like a year in the Canadian wilderness with a pack of wolves, and he basically just studies them. He basically becomes part of a wolf pack, so he's like really like into it. But he's been in a bad car accident that has left him in a coma. And since he's divorced from his wife, it's up to his 2 children. They're sort of fighting out. His estranged son and his 17-year-old daughter are sort of fighting out, on what's going to happen to their father. Are they going to continue keeping him like hooked up to ventilators and machines, or turn off the machines, which would obviously end his life? So it's sort of a fight between them on that, and then it also kind of goes into his like interesting life as a wolf biologist. So really interesting, definitely about family. This is sort of broken family, and it sort of explores how they got to the point that they are currently, with they're all sort of like separated and not really functioning as a family unit. how they got to that point, and it sort of works through them sort of coming together in the light of their father's condition. So really interesting. I really enjoyed it. Definitely Jodi Picoult books can be sort of heavy. Definitely she picks like hot button topics to write about, but I think it makes it a little more interesting that it's not, you know, if you look at the news, a lot of stories can be really depressing, but she sort of like fictionalizes it so you can really like think about an issue, and she has really like a thought-provoking book. So really enjoyed that. The next book I read, or not read, but listened to, is Down the Rabbit Hole by Holly Madison, which is kind of unexpected. It wasn't something I would have thought to pick up, but I've heard a few people say that they were reading it, so I was sort of like intrigued by that. And I was looking at Audible, and it had really high ratings, so I was like, I kind of like memoir sort of books. Like, I'll try it out. So Holly Madison, she was on The Girl Next Door. She doesn't like to be referred as Hugh Hefner's girlfriend, but that's probably what she's most known for. She was Hugh Hefner's girlfriend for like 7 years or something like that. So this is her, you know, years. It's been not quite 10 years since she's been Hugh Hefner's girlfriend, but it's her like life and her kind of, you know, going through the story of how she ended up at the mansion and her being on The Girls Next Door, and how she sort of, in her own words, kind of got herself out of a bad situation. So definitely really interesting. Definitely if you like celebrity sort of like gossip type of books, or like reality television kind of behind the scenes sort of books, I definitely recommend this one. It wouldn't be for everyone, but I found it really interesting, and the Playboy, like if you're thinking about how racy or something it would be, I definitely would say it was more like PG-13. It's not too explicit or something like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm listening to this. This is like rated R or worse. I would say it's probably more in the PG-13 range. So definitely for over 18, but I thought it was really interesting, and definitely the, you know, celebrity, like reality TV part of it was interesting. So I found that really enjoyable. And then currently I'm listening to A Man Called Uva. It's by Fredrik Backman. And I didn't realize when I ordered it, or I guess downloaded it on Audible, that it's like actually a Swedish book. I don't know. I saw it on Audible. It had like high ratings. It's about this man who, he's a curmudgeon, and he's like the grumpy old neighbor. And so I was like, oh, it just sounds kind of interesting. It seemed like an interesting character. But I didn't realize that it was a Swedish book. But I don't know. I find that it's even more interesting because it's a Swedish book. But it's about this like grumpy old man, and he has new neighbors that have moved next door. It's a couple in their 30s, and they have 2 small children, and then the wife is pregnant with a 3rd child. And for some reason or another, especially the wife really wants to befriend this old man. He's not that old. He's like 59. So this curmudgeon, grumpy man. But it talks about his life, and the chapters here also alternate between like present time and past. So you kind of learn about his life and learn everything that has gone on in his life and sort of why he is the way he is, which I love books like that really delve into why a character is the way they are, versus just having like some grumpy character but saying, okay, he's just that way. But really understanding, I think books like this sort of get you to think more about just the surface of a person, and like really think what has happened in their life, or what are the circumstances that have created who this person is. So I find it really interesting, really enjoyable. I'm still listening to it, but I've really liked that one. Definitely recommend that. So those are all the books, the ones I've read and what I've been listening to. And then going forward, because I really want to get back into reading, I'm going to be doing, for my book videos, a more project based approach to reading because I do projects with everything else. I want to do a book project. So my next video will be introducing that. So definitely if you like these sort of book videos, keep tuned for that. And yeah, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.